Sunday, and it is 8 p.m. Indian time. And we are back with Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga, with Dr. Subramanian Sawmy and our guests on our Virat Hindustan Sangam social media channel. We are today on episode 155, and today's topic is India's choice, BRICS or Quad or both. And we will be discussing in the next 45 minutes to an hour with Dr. Subramanian Sawmy and Sree Iyer of P Gurus. You know Sree Iyer, who has been with us on numerous programs. He is an editor, writer, running the famous website known as P Gurus, and he has been on the forefront of numerous news items and exposures on his very sought after P Gurus channel, and he is based in the US. And we have with us our co-host Ramesh Swamy and Professor Arvind Chaturvedi from Delhi. I also have to thank our technical team led by Ashish Shetty, Tejas Navalgul, Swaminathan, Ishwar Iyer, Rakesh Gadgi, Ajesh Nair, and Vishal Mehta for their support to put this program on every Sunday together. So with these words, it is over to Dr. Subramanian Sawmy to start this discussion today on this topic of India's choice, BRICS or Quad or both. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish. This is a topic which we felt in Gyan Ganga we should raise, because people know the BRICS, there's something called BRICS and something called Quad, and they just don't know what it is about. And India is participating in both, and how, what is it, how is it correct, is it not correct? People are totally confused. So I have received a number of requests which I had spoken to you about, to clarify what these words BRICS and Quad mean, and why, whether we should be members of both or members of one of them. If it is members of one of them, then which one, BRICS or Quad? And that's the thing that I intend to lay the foundation. And then, of course, Sree Iyer, who's got very vast experience in a number of other issues connected with this, he will take over, and then we can have an interaction with the other members here today. Now, first of all, BRICS so far has 5 members: China, Russia, India, South Africa, and Brazil. I'm announcing this geographically, so to speak, starting from the east. And Quad has 4 members: United States, India, Australia, and Japan. So I think these 2 organizations, they are to some extent similar, some extent different. And so what I would like to do is to put the matter in a framework of 4 issues. One is, what about the objectives of these 2 organizations or setups, or whatever you want to call them, BRICS and Quad? I mean, what is the objectives that they are pursuing? The second thing is, what are the priorities for them? And third one is, what is the strategy they are advocating for the issues which are important? And so this in this manner, we also would like to know where the resources are going to come from. So these are the 4 aspects which I would like to highlight. And let me say that at the moment, India is the only country of the 5 in BRICS and 4 in Quad, which is a member of both. And it reminds me of the story of a bat in Panchatantra, the story in Panchatantra about a bat which went to when there was a war between the birds and the animals. the bat went and told the birds, I'm like you, I fly, I have wings, and so on, and then went to and said that I'm on your side, you can count me on your side. And then went to the animals and said, I look like a rat, and I'm actually an animal, and you can see the way I look, and therefore I'm on your side. And then went to sleep while the birds and the animals were having a battle, and they were enjoying life, having a good, good relaxed thing out of the battle, having told both of them that they are on their side. Later on, there was a ceasefire between the birds and the animals, and then they said, "Where is the bat?" So the birds said, "Yes, they had said they are with us, and they haven't turned up." They said, "What?" The animals said, the bat said the same thing to us. So let's go both hunt for it. And that is why the bat doesn't come out except during the night and is always hanging upside down to confuse everybody. And so India may end up just like that, telling them both that I'm with you. And we have to now look at the facts, the objectives and the priorities and the strategy of both these organizations, and see whether India belongs to both, can possibly belong to both, or whether it has to choose side, and if so, which side. So that's how I will begin. Now, these are not very old organizations. The Quad was really started during the tsunami in Japan, when some of those countries came together to help each other, help Japan, which was really hit by the tsunami very badly. And so it emerged from that, and it kept developing. And then later on, in the late, 2012, 2013, it was formalized. And by the time BJP government came, we began participating in that. Now, the BRICS actually came into being in 2007, when there was this financial crack up in the West, and due to that lending process going haywire, and housing inventory started rising, and the lending banks began to collapse. So there was a huge financial crisis at that time. The Chinese felt that there should be some kind of an organization which would insulate for them from the future, from the Western collapsing systems. And so they came up with this idea of BRICS. So now we are participating in both. And it's a very curious thing, and both of them are looking askance at us. But so let me see whether there is some deep contradiction between what the BRICS wants and what the Quad wants, and that it's impossible for any sane country to be a member of both if there is a contradiction. So that's what I'm going to say, and then after 5 minutes or so, I'll hand it over to Sri Iyer, to tell me, so to hear his perspective, and then we can take a discussion moving forward. The first thing is that the goal of Quad is security. Security is mentioned explicitly, then economic, and then health and environment. These are the four things that are mentioned. But security is an important thing. In fact, the first act of Quad was a joint naval operation in the Pacific Ocean area, which is just eastwards after the Indian Ocean ceases to be. And furthermore, all the members of the Quad are democratic countries. And although Australia in the beginning wobbled a bit because of the heavy Chinese influence on some of its leaders, but now that after the election that has been cleared up now, so that's also very clear. So United States, Australia, Japan, view China as a major threat, and India doesn't. At least India has so far not articulated. They are not even, India is not even willing to admit that China has occupied 4,000 square kilometers of your territory after crossing the line of actual control. So consequently, we have a situation where India is cannot be on the same platform as the Quad, because the Quad has decided that China is the principal threat today to the world. So this is one aspect which we have to keep in mind. Now, India also has to articulate that the Malacca Strait is an extremely important strategic place. On one side is India, and the other side is Indonesia. And 90% of the trade of China goes to Western countries by ship through the Malacca Strait. And therefore, India and Indonesia, supposing tomorrow Indonesia joins Quad, India and Indonesia, with the help of the United States, can blockade China's commercial traffic if it wanted in the future in a situation of war where you want to put some economic sanctions. So it's something that the Quad affords. So you can't be a friend of China in BRICS and an enemy of China in Quad. So that's a major contradiction which India has never clarified to the people of India. Somehow, I don't know what is wrong with our External Affairs Ministry. And they think that being with everybody is a great diplomatic success. How can it be a great diplomatic success? It'll be, that's what I call as the bat of Panchatantra. You know, you go and speak in one language to one side, and then you speak in another language to another side. So now BRICS, you see, it's not something that I'm against because I'm against the Chinese or something like that. It's not. I was a great friend of China till they occupied our territory. Then, of course, that's betrayal. So you can't expect me as an Indian not to do it. On the contrary, because of the fact that the Chinese had such a high opinion of me, Mr. Modi proposed me as the first president of the BRICS Bank, and which, of course, I declined because I said I have left Harvard to come to India, and I'm not going to leave India and go to. It may have suited Modi if I had gone away to Shanghai or South Africa or someplace like that as the president of BRICS Bank. But I know that we are going to head. In fact, right from 2015, I've been telling Modi that the Chinese attitude is getting stiff. Please be careful on all your talks because they are just buying time with you, and soon they will come out in their thing. They are planning something. That's what I get by reading their own Chinese newspapers, etc. So the question becomes, what is that the BRICS wants today? Are they also dealing with security? No, nothing. There's no security thing. Everything is economic. Market access. In one word, it is market access. How to maximize market access. Whether it's by putting a connection from Xinjiang or from Tibet, along with from Depsang, which is Indian territory, and then go on to Pakistan-held Kashmir, and then go on to Iran, and then go into the ocean, which the Chinese want. Whether we are going to be a party of that's sort of thing. The whole BRICS discussion is on economic issues, and there's no strategic issues. On the other hand, Quad is on strategic issues, but both these collide. If you are going to say that Russia and India, because of BRICS, will have rupee trade, then you are going to get into a clash with the United States. We are already happening because of Ukraine. So here, I would say we have to be very careful. We will come to grief, like the bat in Panchatantra, if we don't make a choice. And I think the fact that the Russians and the Chinese They happen to be dictatorial countries. It's not a democracy by any stretch of imagination. I'm not sure that Brazil can be called as a full-fledged democracy, but anyway, semi-democracy. So is South Africa, and we really don't belong there. And my suggestion would be stop doing this thing that I'm friends with everybody. Everybody likes me. Like the prime minister goes to every country which invites him. Not for a big country's prime minister, he shouldn't be doing that, but he's doing that. And nothing comes out of it except bonhomie and the usual talks and so on. But when it comes to when the chips are down, hardly anybody stands with us. Today, if somebody were to ask us, does any country stand with us on Bhutan? Because even Bhutan doesn't stand with us anymore. They have now told us very frankly, we can settle with China ourselves. We don't need you. Nepal is not with you. Your Bangladesh, I don't know. The Sri Lankans were coming around to a point of view, but then they are having this crisis. I don't know how things are going to come out. Pakistan is not with you. Pakistan is very close friend with China, and Chinese are giving weapons. Now the Russians, because of that, are now getting close to Pakistan. Please understand, Russia is not an independent country anymore. It is so indebted to China, and they are so much dependent on China that almost any political analyst in the diplomatic field, including Indians, let's say, for instance, some people have written a book like Gokhale, who is a foreign secretary, has written a book. He says that Russia is nothing but a junior partner of China, and to date, the Russians have not at all ever gone against China. What have they said about the Chinese occupation of our territory? Nothing. Oh, they should be talked. Well, they're sitting on my chest, and how can I have a negotiation with people who are sitting on my chest? If you start by saying, okay, both will withdraw to our line of control, and then we'll negotiate, I can understand that. But the Chinese are sitting here, and you want to negotiate with them, and we have been negotiating with them. They're giving away nothing. And in fact, they use very harsh language with us, which our press censorship, our compliant press, I won't call it press censorship, compliant press has not published. I know what is. I filed a question in Parliament on this, that how many inches of Indian territory has China taken, and the government gave a reply that it is not in the national interest to disclose it. I mean, how can it be that if a foreign country occupies your land, you tell Parliament that it's not in the national interest to be told how much they have occupied? But anyway, this is the kind of thing that is going on. And I think we will get more and more trapped by the Chinese. And then, of course, now the rupee trade, that's another big issue. That will ultimately lead us to a situation of confrontation with the United States, which has now imposed sanctions on Russia. So, I mean, this is my point of view. I'm not saying that there isn't another point of view, but I think my point of view is superior. So what I would say is there a choice to be made? My short answer is you can't be member of both. And in the end, you will end up being with nobody and totally isolated. We are making a huge historical blunder by trying to be beyond both. Second, who would you like to be with? According to me, Quad, because Quad is of democratic countries. And this is a country where China is there, then its junior partner Russia is there, and then contiguously we are here. So Brazil and South Africa, they're too far away to make a difference when we have a problem with China. And the Russians will not side with you against China. And they didn't do it in 1962 also. They said China is our brother and you are only our friend. And the transcripts I have produced in my latest book published last year, the Himalayan struggle or whatever it was called, something like that. And so It's clear from transcripts that I produced that Khrushchev very clearly said even to Mao Zedong in a one-to-one meeting, "You're like our brother. China, India is only our friend. But why do you have to do this?" That's the kind of thing he says. But in the end, they didn't put any sanctions on them. So in either we become an equal partner in BRICS because it's a democratic, now in Quad because it's the democratic, four democratic parties, and or we become a junior partner of a junior partner, that is of Russia, and Russia is already a junior partner of China, and in the end, we for our economic development, for advanced equipment, and so on, we suffer. Americans do want us very badly in Quad, that's true, but they want us because they think we are the only country that can take on China because our population is almost equal to China's. And that the terrain we have with China is favorable to us, and we are more acceptable to those countries whom the Chinese are threatening, like Vietnam, Tibet, Hong Kong, Taiwan. These are countries which and of course Thailand and Laos and other countries in that region. So Indonesia. So India has that potential, and it can be only developed if we get very good, sizable, modern weapons at dirt cheap price or free, which the Americans are capable of giving. We don't need American troops at all. We have enough, and we should emerge as a counterweight to China in Asia, and if necessary, the world. And this can only be done through the Quad. So this is my submission on my thesis.
Thank you, Dr. Sawmy. It's always a pleasure to be on Virat Hindustan Sangam's Gyan Ganga. Dr. Sawmy, I want you to jog your memory and tell our viewers, in 1962, there were two letters written by Jawaharlal Nehru to President Kennedy, back to back, within a 24-hour period, two letters. And I think following that, a few days later, the first giant American aircraft called the Caribou, Caribou, landed in Kolkata. Now, do you think that the Chinese started withdrawing after that incident or before that incident?
I don't think it had anything to do with that. First, by the way, the landing took place after the Chinese had begun withdrawing. The Chinese, yes, Chinese had come to demonstrate that they can cross the McMahon line. But they also knew that the moment they get into the hills of, from the hills down to the fields of Assam, like for example, they came very close to Tezpur, that they will not be able to sustain it because their support lines come from Tibet, and Tibet is a hostile area. So all their supplies come from Chengdu, Sichuan province, or Gansu. These are those things which are on the borders of the northern part of Tibet, and therefore they will not be able to sustain a military occupation of India. So when you are not able to occupy, all you have to demonstrate is that India is not our equal. We can thrash them, which they achieved thanks to Jawaharlal Nehru's weak-kneed policies and his collapse emotionally. And then they went back. And they went back just beyond the McMahon line. So all that is new that is happening this time is more than from Tibet, the Xinjiang side, they have come through Depsang. And they have come to Ladakh. That is a new route. And this route too, they know very well that unless we acquiesce in it and agree, they will not be able to retain it if India gets aggressive.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to touch this point because there is a perception in the Indian public that the US never helped India. So at least there was a token offer of help that the Caribou planes landed in Kolkata. Well, so...
No, excuse me. Let me interrupt you. You tell those Indians that The Russians' official announcement publicly made was that we are agonized by this development, but China is our brother, India is only our friend. This came in the newspapers, and I've reproduced it in my book, The Himalayan Challenge.
Thank you, sir. The next thing is whether Quad or BRICS. Dr. Sawmy, in my opinion, Quad kind of died a sudden death after the Afghanistan fiasco, where the US just went back. And suddenly people felt that the bottom had fallen from under their feet. Because if you look at it at that point of time, sir, the US was signing a lot of bilateral agreements. They were creating a quad with another set of countries, another quad here. There was a quad with Russia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and not India. I mean, it seemed like, I think somewhere along the way, the US kind of had some muddied thinking at that point of time. However, now it is a little bit steady. And I think Quad may be beginning to see a sign of reawakening. So I'm not batting for Modi government, Dr. Sawmy. I'm just telling you the way I saw the thing unfold. Because AUKUS, what was AUKUS? The AUKUS was a realization by the US that China was going to attack Australia, and that Australian nuclear submarines that they were going to get from French were not in the same league as what the Chinese submarines were, and therefore on a one-on-one encounter, that Australia might come up short. And I think that was what was explained. I could be wrong about this. And French were said, look, we will do something else for now. This is why we are going to do this. UK had the software, I believe, and that's how UK came into the picture. So this was an arrangement to shore up the Australian vulnerability. Again, Dr. Sawmy, I am just reading the tea leaves here. I could be reading it wrongly, but Quad is beginning to come back again after the Ukraine invasion by Russia.
Well, first, let me get the. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So, do you want me to answer this?
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
See, the thing is, first of all, I'll answer your questions and I'll come to your assessment, and then you can go ahead with the other point you are about to raise. The Quad was never meant for Afghanistan. It was supposed to be Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, Indo-Pacific. It was supposed to be that particular region. We had no Quad in Afghanistan at all. In fact, may I tell you that I got this on good authority from our own External Affairs Ministry. The Americans, before withdrawing from Afghanistan, asked us that you've got such a large staff here in all, and you're so much liked by the Afghan people. Will you take over the military role, and we'll provide you all their weapons? And we turned it down. Said, no, we are going to take away our people back to India, and we have got permission for that. So to say that the Americans entered into an agreement with Pakistan, etc., in that area, I don't think would be an appropriate thing unless you decide to make Quad as an international thing, in which case, of course, on Ukraine also, you'll have to take a different position from what you're taking now. So I think what we have to do is that before we ascribe blame to anyone, you must find out exactly whether the blame, who started it all. I mean, you first said you will not leave BRICS, and then you will be here also, and you will be there also. I think anybody in his right mind would say, okay, let us have this for environment and growing rose flowers and so on, and we'll have something separate with Britain, with Australia and Japan, minus India, which is what they have, the alternative organizations that they have created. So this is how I would put it, playing the devil's advocate for the United States.
Dr. Sawmy, so Quad again is beginning to regain its footing. But if you look at the components there, the three armed forces of three countries, Japan, Australia, and United States, are more or less aligned in terms of the way they communicate with each other over ships and so on and so forth. Whereas India has been reliant on Soviets for a long time. And only recently, I have to say, recently we have been buying less of Russian and more of other. And other could be West. It's not just US, but US, West, and so on and so forth. So there is this perception that India might not quite gel well in this Quad environment. Again, I have no way to prove this one way or the other. The reason I'm saying this is if India decides to say that I am with Quad, sir, if India says that I am with Quad, China could very well impose an economic blockade and a cyber blockade. I'll give you an example. The power grid outage in Mumbai. Then the ransomware that is going on in Oil India in Assam. Nobody is saying anything. The second one is particularly a concern, sir, because if India paid up, there will be more attacks. If India did not pay up, then there will be more situations where bigger things will start getting attacked. And the common element that I have found between the power grid and this oil distribution system is a series of control systems called as supervisory control and data acquisition. And if you look at India's purchase, government purchase, they will always buy the cheapest thing on the block. The specifications, the way these things work, that's all secondary. And it is my belief, I could be wrong, somebody can correct me, but majority of communications infrastructure of India, the controls infrastructure of India, anything you ask, all these are Chinese owned, and in many cases still Chinese operated. India did not learn how to use these things without the help of the person who sold this product. That's how it looks like, sir. I mean, I could be wrong. Please, people roast me if I'm wrong. But if that is the case, China can basically hold India to ransom.
Well, first of all, S-400 has also got Chinese electronics, by the way. And now the Russians have said that they are not going to supply because of the war. That's not correct. The Chinese have made a big claim for more S-400s, and those which were designated to go to India has gone to China. Now, you are a member of BRICS, and the Chinese have come and occupied your land, and you don't seem to bother about that. But the Americans have a talk with the Pakistanis on Afghanistan. You get upset when you're not a member of you're not a partner of the Chinese, of the Americans in Afghanistan. You have refused consistently. There was a time when they wanted you to send troops and said that we will help you with all the weaponry, and the people of Afghanistan will welcome you and help you in the fight against the terrorists or the Talibanis. And we didn't agree. So this business of finding fault only with the other side, that's a whole Indian habit. I want you to know, I want to look at this point from this point of view, that we want protection against China, because that's a explicit threat. They have occupied our land. We want them to be moved, and we want to fight it out if necessary. Who's going to help us? The Russians cannot help us. No matter what you do, at the last minute they will walk off, as they have done even now. Second, the Americans can do it. You have to then woo the Americans. Or you say, okay, for 20 years we'll let the Chinese occupy a territory. We'll build our self-reliance, in the equipment. But then you will have to do what you just pointed out, those on the cyber thing, which is a very, very important issue. But I don't see any such urgency in these matters.
Dr. Sawmy, you remember the UN peacekeeping force that India was part of?
Yeah.
Was it under Vajpayee government that India did that?
No, we have been sending our forces on UN peacekeeping right from Lal Bahadur Shastri's time.
Okay, but it did happen under Vajpayee's watch also, right?
Also,
Somalia
it
came-
happened. Yeah, we
Yes,
continued
yes.
it. We continued it.
So what is the difference between being part of a UN peacekeeping force and being part of a peacekeeping force in Afghanistan? Why drag their feet? I don't know, sir. I'm asking you the question.
Well, I'm not in power, so you can't ask me this question. But you can ask me to guess.
Please
And,
guess, sir.
uh,
Please
uh,
guess.
my guess is that we are chicken. We are afraid of the reaction of the Russians. We are scared of the reactions of the Chinese. And so, in this situation, we are finding that where our interests lie. In Iraq, too, um, actually, Advani, as deputy prime minister, went to China, America. Bumswell or whatever his name was, the defense minister, he and him signed an agreement that India
Donald
sent.
Donald Rumsfeld. Rami, he was called.
And Advani signed an agreement with them. Came back to India. Vajpayee moved a resolution without telling Advani. And in that resolution, he said that the American presence in Iraq is an act of imperialism. This is the exact words of that resolution. And the whole thing fell through. So, I
Dr.
mean,
Swamy, when India has signed that agreement, that's a breach of agreement.
no, it was not a United Nations force. The Americans went on their own.
Okay.
It was not a United Nations force. So there was no breach there. But Mr. Vajpayee has signed an agreement that we think that Tibet is part of China, which is exactly what Jawaharlal Nehru also signed. So how can you tomorrow turn on saying China is aggressed? People are just saying Tibet. But Mr. Vajpayee signed it. You have not disowned it. You have not said, I don't agree.
Dr. Swamy, because India was not part of that, there was a tweet by the exiled president of Afghanistan, Amrullah Saleh, 2-3 days ago, saying that a foreign force has occupied part of the Bagram Air Base. I don't know if you read that. So basically, and he didn't say the name Pakistan, but he has given enough hints saying that this supported Haqqani, blah, blah, blah. So you can guess that this is what it is. So now, Afghanis may not have the technical nous to operate some of the things left behind, but with Pakistan getting their hands into that, who knows what is going to happen. But let's get back to the original question, sir. Russia is, even if it wins, I don't know what it is looking for. It's a Pyrrhic victory, a victory that comes at great cost. And we don't know how that's going to play out, but certainly it has stopped China from thinking about attacking Taiwan. If some reports are correct, and I'm open to debate, Russia and China agreed that they will do it within days of each other. One goes after Ukraine, the other one goes after Taiwan. But suddenly China developed cold feet and said, let's wait and watch what happens. And remember, Putin went and met Xi Jinping during the Winter Olympics. So again, this is speculation, pure speculation. Second thing that the Chinese did not do was to support Russia fully with whatever they needed for their offensive against Ukraine. So Russia is a little bit unhappy right now. For example, their defense minister has gone missing. I don't know where he is.
Listen, Russian unhappiness doesn't count anything with Chinese. They know they have got a complete grip on Russia, and Russia is totally dependent on them. And the Putin is increasingly become a kind of a isolated figure, much like Hitler after his failure in St. Petersburg. So I think what you have to look at is not that who will do what. What is our interest? We are today talking about Indian interests. Our interest is we are a nation which is third largest GDP in the world after the United States and China, or China and the United States, depending on how you do the valuation. But we are the three countries, three largest armies also. We are not the three largest geographical countries because China and the United States are 1 and 2, and we are, I think, 4 or 5, because We have lost so much territories, thing which the world doesn't count. So India must demonstrate to the world, like we did in, even there, it was a little stunted, the Bangladesh thing. We should have smashed West Pakistan also. They were absolutely lying, prostrate before us after the fall of Dhaka. And we should have broken Pakistan into four, which it is ready to happen anytime if somebody assists them. But we didn't. So we don't have this killer instinct. So today, what you should do is you announce to the world, Chinese, you got till the 1st of January of 2023. And if you don't clear out, we are going to clear you out. And ask for the world to support you. And you will find that there are many countries today which are playing ducks and drakes with you. They'll come forward and give it to you, because the itch, desire to put the Chinese in their place is quite high in a very large number of countries, and especially in Asia.
I'm hoping that the Ministry of External Affairs will come out with some sort of a clarification on this particular debate, because you and I, we are looking at angles that perhaps people don't want us to look at. And certainly the viewers should understand that we are here after the truth. We still don't understand why Modi cannot say that there is an incursion of 4,000 square kilometers. and so the satellite maps have shown it. I mean,
I know.
so what are you trying to do? I mean, it's anybody who has access for satellite maps will see that there is a huge amount of incursion. And Dr. Sawmy, I get a lot of subject matter experts, but I don't cross them and say, no, you're wrong, I'm right. Because sometimes what happens is, if somebody wants to give their opinion, I let them give their opinion. But my opinion today, sir, is the same as yours. India is making a huge mistake, huge mistake. You need to cut your losses with China. You really need to. So what will happen? They may cut off the communications for a month. You have to, unless India gets to that point, India will not figure out how its own infrastructure works. I tell you, India is a crisis-driven society. We are more emotional. We think with our heart than with our head. But when it comes to that, when they say the whole country, okay, they have cut off the entire communication network because it's all ZTE equipment, it is Huawei equipment. Now we got to figure this out. We can't put American structure in. See, it's impossible, sir. All the cell towers are located. It's going to be impossible to go and get something else on a switch of a button. You have to figure this out. I hope India gets driven to that problem, because only then India will respond. We're a crisis-driven society, which is very regrettable. You could have been much more smooth. I still, for the love of Mike, I don't understand why this SCADA thing hasn't been conquered by India. I'm also told that even Indian Railways uses SCADA to kind of monitor and route the traffic. So, yeah. I mean, no guesses there. I mean, it probably is again Chinese equipment. And this is not complicated stuff, sir. We have
Chinese exports to India is growing every year. It's unbelievable, 14-15% per year. You haven't closed down the Chinese exports to India. I'll put it simply. Today, India announces that we give an ultimatum to China: get out of our territory, or we are getting out of BRICS. Number one. Tell the Americans that we are not only ready for Quad, but we are willing to have a bilateral agreement with you regarding the containment of China, and for which we will provide the manpower, you provide us the weapons. The whole situation will change. The Chinese will be the first one to become conciliatory, like they have become conciliatory with the Americans as far as Ukraine is concerned. So the Chinese are very practical people, and they made a mistake as far as India is concerned. They thought that they had made a correct assessment. Yes, they were right about Modi, that he would not do anything. He would not allow this to get out of hand. And Modi has maintained this myth that nobody has come. And nobody, even today, people in Twitter have a debate with me. How do you know the Chinese have occupied any territory of India? The whole world knows it. as you say, satellites are giving pictures which nobody has been able to contradict. If you talk to any military man privately, he also says they're all very happy with that. I'm raising it, and I'm speaking on it, and of course. Modi's bhaktas are all saying that I was a Chinese agent. Poor Chinese, if they have agents like me, they don't need friends, anymore. So therefore, I would say, instead of just saying we do this, this is not the time for that. A dramatic announcement is necessary. Chinese, clear out, otherwise we clear you out. And as a first step, we are saying we are walking out of BRICS, and we are now becoming a full-fledged, unashamed members of Quad, and we would like to increase our military understanding with the United States by having a bilateral agreement with them for weapons, for strategic reasons. See, if you start like that, then everybody will come. The Americans are a lot of friends. You may say anything about it. Entire Europe is their friend. Australia is their friend. Japan is their friend. Vietnam is indirectly their friend. Indonesia is their friend. They have got friends all over the place. And even Pakistan can be contained if the Americans feel that the Indians are going to be with us in the fight against China, because Pakistan is so thoroughly intertwined with the Chinese in so many things that they will be the Americans will not like to touch them. They'll be toxic for them.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Sawmy. So the options before the Modi government are to bite the bullet and really truly become Atmanirbhar in maintaining what they've got from China. And this is all public sector institutions. States are creating artificial scarcities because they can buy electricity from private providers and take some portion off and then ding it to the customer. A certain state that has letters T and N come to mind.
Yeah, I agree. You see, if somebody is so tough within the country, why is he not tough with foreign countries? It should be easier to do that, unless you have some compulsion, which I either have not been able to document, or something that I can't speak just without evidence. But I will say, behaviorally, it appears to me that you have something to hide. Otherwise, why would you not condemn the Chinese for taking your territory? And in fact, say that nobody has come. No, koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi. You see, it makes no sense at all. People thought the same thing about Jawaharlal Nehru. Why did he keep quiet?
It seems like anyone who comes and occupies the PM post in the recent years happens to become Mauni once they become Prime Minister.
Well, so Lal Bahadur Shastri, of course, didn't become recent, but what valor he showed. But then he was put under pressure to negotiate in Tashkent, and that also they killed him also, in my opinion, the Russians. Because
he could have stayed home. There was no need to go to Tashkent, sir.
I agree, but who forced him to go? The Congress party forced him to go, saying the same thing that you said. They are old friends. Russians are our friends. They've stood up for a long time, blah, blah. So Russians are Russians. We better be Indians. Instead of thinking of what the Russians would feel, how they will think. You decide what you need, and then tell the Russians, you come along, fine. Otherwise, friendship is down the toilet.
Sir, my neighbor in my previous home in US was a Sardar. His name was Shankar Singh, and he was a soldier in the army. And he said we were within 4 kilometers of Lahore. They were there for months.
Yeah, yes, in 1971, right?
Yeah, no, 1965, 65.
65 also, yes.
Yeah, they went in there. They had established the administration. The army was whatever India had occupied, Indian currency, Indian banking, everything was working. He said the including the general, the leading person, they were all surprised that wait a minute. First of all, we lose our prime minister. Then, according to the terms of the agreement, we have to retreat back. It was just a mind, and you know what India said, that we will get back our area lost in Rajasthan. So Rajasthan area is Registan. It was desert, so let them keep it. Big deal. You could have kept the area 4 kilometers within 4 kilometers of Lahore.
Yeah, I
I
agree. No,
Indian diplomacy.
it is not timidity. It's some other compulsion.
So
I
this
don't
maybe
think
that's how that's what is now running playing out right now, and that's why, well, sir, this is the truth. And viewers, you take it or not, this is the truth. That is why opposition, ruling, any politician doesn't want Dr. Swamy in a ministerial
Yeah,
capacity
that's
because
true.
he is not going to brook any nonsense. Now you got the
Yeah,
answer.
no, I knew the answer from day one. I knew the answer when Chandrasekhar made me minister, and what all I did in no time with the Americans. Oh, you would be surprised at the kind of people going to Chandrasekhar and telling him, "Do you know what he's going to do? He's going to topple you and take over. Rajiv Gandhi wants him." All this kind of jumkam bunkam. I voluntarily made him prime minister when Rajiv Gandhi from day one was saying I should be prime minister. You see, so I think in India this is there are too many compromised people at the top level, and the only way we can cure that is when good people decide to come to politics and fight it out, like in the 1950s, and Adlai Stevenson and Paul Douglas and all these people came and cleaned out the Chicago mafia completely from American politics and restored democracy.
First, it was a Tammany Hall, and then it was a
Yeah,
Chicago Mafia.
yeah,
Viewers, don't lose heart. US has gone through all this and more.
that's
Okay,
right.
that is a maturing of a democracy. At the same time, both Swamy and Dr. Swamy and I are running out of time, and we are feeling a little impatient because this is a low-hanging fruit. Understand,
Yes,
this is a
yes,
low-hanging fruit. India could
yes.
have quietly taken over responsibility of maintaining Kabul and the Bagram airbase, and things would have been just fine. Just my humble submission, sir, and I know I'll get a lot of grief for this. So what? You are suffering in the long term. Dr. Swamy, also, it is my personal opinion that India may be able to drive China out from a regional conflict across the LAC. I don't think India can sustain. India will need help from US. That's the only
But,
country that
no, only on weapons. I don't think we need.
happens. Yeah. You,
Only on.
खाली हाथ तो नहीं, sir.
I
खाली हाथ
am
तो
not.
नहीं लड़ सकते.
If you announce you're going to do a military action, the Americans will come without your asking.
Let's hope so, sir. I mean, for all the dilly-dallying we do, sometimes we never.
No, Americans will not dilly-dally. The Americans will come right away and they'll dump all the weapons you want. In 1962, they had no incentive to come, but they did come. Whether they
Yes.
came late or early, doesn't matter, but they did come.
That's
In
true.
1950, they offered you the Security Council veto seat
Yes.
of China to you. After Communist China came to power, they expelled them and they offered it to you, and you said, no, it belongs to the Chinese. What is that mentality? Where you sacrifice your nation for it? Mr. Vajpayee signed the treaty with Tibet. What was the need to sign it again? Just because the Chinese wanted it? You went and signed it?
And we don't know what Rahul Gandhi signed in 2008.
That is for their personal bank account.
Oh, I see. Okay. You learn something new every time.
I was in China 1 year after they had gone, so I know what they did. and Priyanka selling handicrafts in China. All
Each
these
one
I
worth $1
know.
million. I think we are ready for questions or any other interaction with our hosts.
They should have interrupted us earlier.
No, Jagdish ji came in nicely, but then we were, in the middle of a heated discussion. So,
There's no room for gentlemen. It should have been aggressive.
Dr. Sawmy and Sree Iyer, there's a question from our viewers that once upon a time, China had called, regarding this Quad, had called it as an Asian NATO. So,
Yes, they're still hostile to it.
yes, so
They are very
I'm
much
saying
against it.
when they are hostile to it, what is that which, we are part of BRICS, we are part of Quad. So after they calling this as an Asian NATO, NATO, so what is that hostile attitude that they have towards this that can make us be part of both?
No, you can't be part of both. Both of them are treating you. I mean, if Russia was going to go to Ukraine, then as part of BRICS, they should have discussed with us. Shall we go? Not go? Why didn't they do that? They did. They discussed it with the Chinese. I know that very well, but they didn't discuss it with us. They don't. When you're on both sides, you're like the bat in Panchatantra. Who will care for you? You see, they'll take you for granted. You have to be a friend, which means you have to make choices, and those choices must be clear and explicit.
The next big conflict.
Sorry, Sree Iyer, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, my 2 cents. The next big conflict that will happen using nuclear submarines. Why nuclear? Because nuclear submarines will not have to come and refuel, and they can just lay underneath the sea for extended periods of time, which means that if they have proper detection measures, countermeasures, then they can be in under the sea. And today, both United States, Russia, and China, all three have weapons that can be fired from under the water, from the surface, and from in the air, launched from a airplane. So when you look at all these things, what China is trying to do, if you remember, China is hitting South China Sea, Spratly Island. They want to get all the oil they can lay their hands on, because that place, Spratly Island, that area is rich in oil. And China thinks that they can get all that oil. They've in fact built artificial islands that US under Obama allowed to happen. They didn't do anything. Those are now Chinese air bases. So what I'm trying to say is that the Quad is, yes, it is like a NATO, and it cannot coexist with China, because at some point of time, India will have an area to defend, and it will have to do some countermeasuring, for which they will have to get hold of a lot of the technical secrets of how this is going to be fought. This is going to be fought. Assume that cyber terrorism India somehow manages, but this kind of an warfare is going to be a big problem.
Yep.
Arvind, your question? Your mic is off, Arvind.
Dr. Sawmy, you have been very forthright and very consistent also on this issue, that between Quad and BRICS, India just choose one. Now, we started BRICS maybe about 13, 14 years back, and Quad is hardly 1 year old. Now, China is unhappy with us. China is having incursion in Indian parts. Is it because of India becoming member of the Quad? Number one. Number two, this is the question. Number two, you mentioned that when Russia went to Ukraine, Russia did not consult us, or did not inform us, or did not discuss with us. Russia also did not discuss this issue with Brazil or with South Africa. That means Russia is totally overlooking the concept of BRICS and ignoring the concept of cooperation. And of course, when we were discussing the Ukraine issue, some clause was mentioned by you also in the BRICS agreement, that it has to be discussed among the country, and it is a violation. Now, is Russia is doing the violation because of China, because support from China, or as you have been maintaining again consistently for quite some time, that Russia is a junior partner of China?
Yes.
My contention has been only that in case of conflict, militarily conflict between India and China, Russia will come to rescue or support or help or cooperate with India. That is the issue. And when I was supporting Russia or supporting neutral stand of India between Russia and Ukraine, that time also I said, in case of conflict between India and China, maybe we can rely on Russia to a certain extent. Now, do you think these three questions that I have asked, or these three strands that I have taken, are they having some genuinity, or some valid point?
No, your questions are important because it's widespread in India. Let me collapse it into one major question. Will the Russians come to our rescue if we have a war with China? My answer, before I get into the question of proof, is not at all. On the contrary, they will try to demoralize you and say, after the Chinese have completed their task, sit down and talk. We have seen this exactly the same recently in Ladakh. On 16th, 2020, 2020, is a young officer, lady officer posted in Ladakh, gave a report to our government that the Chinese have come and taken over Depsang and they are massing troops there. This matter was asked of Russia, and Russia gave a reply that the Chinese are doing some field exercises and soon they will go away. It is on that basis Mr. Modi made that statement, koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi, and got stuck with it. Okay, but that was a blatant lie. The Russians were told to say this by the Chinese. The Russians cannot break away from China because the Chinese have got them by a grip which they cannot go. They are, first of all, totally dependent on the Chinese for buying their goods because of sanctions. They are in the crunch that they are facing. There are many things that the Chinese are supplying to them which they are not able to do it. Their weapon system, they have joint collaboration with China. This is would be a absolutely, it'll take you down the ditch if you believe that the Russians will come to you. First of all, Russia is not Soviet Union. Soviet Union was insulted by Mao Zedong, so they wanted to teach them a lesson. So without having come to India's assistance, they wanted to play neutral. They did not side with China. But that was a fight between Mao Zedong and Khrushchev. And is there, I produced the transcripts in my book, Himalayan Challenge, which was obtained after Yeltsin came to power and the Americans went to enter the KGB headquarters and photographed and photostated everything and put it at the Harvard Library and Woodrow Wilson Library and the Library of Congress. So you can go and can get it anytime you want. So these show what was the situation then. But today the situation is very clear. Russia is totally with China. In BRICS, the only thing that matters is China. With India, of course, they want to continue to create the impression that they have interests, but they didn't bother to suggest India's name in Afghanistan. They're working very closely with Pakistan, and so I think we have to come out of this dream of the patron. I think the Indians don't know how to stand on their own feet. They're always looking for some patron, and I think this Russia was never a patron, but today it is not only not a patron, but it is with the enemy of our country.
So are we not doing the same thing of patronizing US in Quad?
US in Quad, US psychology is that if you give them something, they'll take something. They'll give you something. They are great people at doing that. They have consistently done that in a very microscopic way. I tried that when I was a commerce minister. I told them, you can refuel, give me $2 billion. They gave me $2 billion within a weekend. And we overcame the collapse of our system. Americans are known to be give and take people. And so, therefore, if you give something, they'll give you something. But if you go and say, no, no, please support us against China, they're not going to support you. Why? They are very business-like, very calculating. I think even their marriages function on the basis of give and take. You see, it's a contractual thing. And they're very contractual people, and they keep contracts. And Sri Guru will tell you, in America, if they orally tell you something, they are 99% likely to implement it. In our country, you can orally tell and not live up to it. And I've seen this in my own life a number of times from at the highest level, that you will tell you one thing and not do it. So therefore, Americans have an interest today. They want to defeat China. They want to humiliate China. The only country which can put in manpower is India. So they will like to assist India. It is in their interest to assist India. And I am not saying that we are in love with them or they are in love with us. Not at all. There is no such thing with them. It's a give and take. Yeah.
Dr. Sawmy.
Yeah.
India is not a democracy. US is one. Okay. China is not a democracy. US is one. So it's obvious the choice that you're better off going with Quad, which is a congregation of democratic countries rather than BRICS. It's basic. If you just look at the baseline of democracy, what has BRICS done? Nothing. So it is a useless piece of bunch of countries put together, where two countries want to dominate. Now one country wants to dominate it completely. So that's the simplest way of saying why Quad over BRICS is simple. Quad is an organization of democracies, better off for India. Yes, Sri, go ahead.
Now you understand why I gave up. Now you understand why I gave up 60 crores of annual salary for BRICS Bank.
Arvindji, one of the things that US will not negotiate is how the children are taught, are educated, right from the kindergarten level. It doesn't matter whether you study at a Christian school or the public school. The right and wrong were very well defined. It is black and white. And one of the things that the children are taught is that your word, spoken word, is as good as your written word. Some corporate moguls will go and break that, but in a general person to person thing, if they tell you we will come at 8 o'clock to your house, you can be sure that they'll be at your house at 8 o'clock. Not like, anyway, doesn't matter. So, whereas in India, you look at it, in the state of Tamil Nadu, half literates are getting less than them to be appointed in the educational policy for the state, and they are saying that we don't want Hindi, we don't want English also, and Tamil is a great language, and the great chief minister knows only 3 words of English and has aspirations of becoming the prime minister. You see, this democracy has been taken to a little too long. Even in US, the states are very powerful, Arvindji, but some things are not negotiable. Security of the country, how you educate, educational institutions, how the grading is done from university to university. You can take the university ranking 150 in US. The graduate from there will be only 10% less than the Harvard graduate. Not much difference, sir. Can you say that about India?
No, Arvind knows. When I was minister, I managed the dismissal of the DMK government. Not even one cycle was burnt. So it's not the public of Tamil Nadu which is responsible. It is those who sit on them. The public is just the donkey.
We are running out of time. It's already 9:10, past 9:10 p.m. So anyway, Ramesh, with your question, perhaps Arvind can wind up.
Okay. So Dr. Sawmy, it's more of a comment more than a question, because at the end of the day, the US, as you said, is basically what's in it for me. If the US sees some benefit in your relationship, they will help you out. Okay, that's the underlying philosophy. But if you look at Russia or China or in BRICS, what are we going to get? Nothing. Our adversary today is going to be China. So in BRICS, what would China give you to counter them? Not going to happen. Right? So it is pretty logical that India aligns with Quad, for that matter, because Quad is still a very loose. I mean, Quad, by the way, Arvindji was about 2017, not 1 year old. So roughly around 2007. I mean, Quad was much older.
According to me, it is 2004 when the tsunami.
2004. Quad is 2004. It got revived in 2017 by Trump because he saw China as a threat, and it got revived in 2017, and he started. And when India started doing again, sitting on the wall and hurting where it hurts, this AUKUS came into play. So. See, the AUKUS is more strategic. India needs to get into that kind of a position. I think, Dr. Swamy, Quad doesn't give you technology exchange or something like that, but AUKUS does. So India needs to position itself saying that, yes, we are a very democratic country. We're not just going to be a puppet to anybody, but we are going to be pragmatic. And if you help us against our adversaries, we will align with you. I think if that kind of a stature made it very clear. I think Sree mentioned India never makes its state, what it stands for very clear. It just wants to be all over the place. It just wants to be friends with everybody. I'm friends with you. I'm friends. If you don't have some strategic thoughts and say, this is one stand that we will not compromise on, as we highlighted earlier, be it national security, in terms of those things, it will be very important that the India aligns with Quad. One more thing, Sree, you mentioned about this submarine nuclear. I think the bigger threat is going to come from space. I think that's where China has developed some serious capability, not only in cyber warfare, but also warfare from outer space. So that India needs the help of America or Western nations. You are not going to get that from Russia. Very clear. So I think looking far ahead from a technology standpoint, cyber threats and threat from outer things, because China has tested rockets that can, go and destroy satellites or have satellites that have weaponry in them. India does not have the capability today, but if India wants to have it, it has to align with countries that are like-minded. That's all I wanted to say. Share with you.
Arvind, I think it is time to wind up.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. Thank you, our guest from P Gurus, Sree Iyer ji. Thanks the technical team led by Ashish Shetty, Gadgi Rakesh, Ishwar Iyer, Swaminathan, Tejas, Vishal Mehta, Najesh Nair, and the host Jagdish Shetty and Ramesh Swamy. This subject we have been discussing for quite some time now, and our topic for today's discussion was BRICS or Quad or both. The expert panel rules out the last possibility, that is both, and therefore it has to be BRICS or Quad. Now, the closing remarks from Mr. Ramesh Swamy supported that India should look at India's interest, and India's interest lies in Quad. But my only question, which remains to be answered maybe subsequently later on in some other discussion, India, despite of having tensions with China, has been increasing the trade with China over a period of time, including the last year. Even in last 1 year, the kind of trade that has grown and the investment that we have been invited, or investment which is being looked at. So we are looking at both ways. A, we are having tension with China, which we are not admitting. B, we are also ready with economic opportunities with China. And simultaneously, we are hobnobbing with Quad. So basically, as Dr. Swamy started with, the Panchatantra bad situation, and in the best interest of India, we should avoid that situation. And the time will unfold. The situation will tell us in the near future what India is going to do. But as advised, India should adopt either BRICS or Quad, and in interest, it is in Indian interest that we should do away with BRICS. We will be discussing the subject or similar subjects again in the Words of Wisdom Gyan Ganga next Sunday. A new topic with Dr. Subramanian Sawmy and an expert. We'll be meeting 8 p.m. on Sunday next, that is May 8th.
Good evening, everyone. As Payal said, thank you for being here. And of course, there are 5 other women who joined the 2 of us in welcoming you here today. There's Nina, there's Ritu, who all of you know, there's Shuli, Rimjim, and Anjali, a couple of whom aren't here physically, but this is the team of women who put it together. So thank you. You know, in many ways, about 2 years ago, we had invited Dr. Sawmy to Algebra. And that day we declared that we are going to start a series of Sawmy conversations because it's not enough to have just one of them. We'd urge you to go to the